Unboxable Podcast, episode 41. Hello and welcome back. I am Elena Turley. I'm the founder of the Soul Mama Academy, which is a membership connecting overextended mothers with juicy, holistic, energizing practices and each other. That done and said, I'm very excited for episode 41 with the delightful Kasia Bourke. We have another one of our gorgeous conversations. You will remember her potentially from episode 10. Kasia is really a remarkable woman who works with women who are ready to get in touch with their deeper purpose and to really connect with spirit. And the way she does that is unique. And I got to say, our conversations are always supercharged with really amazing energy. So please enjoy our very power charged chat about boundaries, about why we need them, how they work, and all the different ways we can create them healthily for ourselves. So please enjoy my chat with Kasia Bourke. Kasia Bourke, welcome back. How are you?
Hello, Alina. I am so grateful that I am here on your podcast again. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. Now, I'm going to address a small elephant in the room for myself straight away. My name is spelt really, really differently to how it sounds. So I have a name that sounds like Alena, like the road, like the laneway, but is spelt like Alina, like you said it. So if you would like, Kasia, you are welcome to call me Lena or Lane, or if that's easier for you.
I want to call you the way you want me to call, because I know from my name how frustrating it is when people mispronounce it, right?
I mean, it is what it is, but I've decided a little while ago I wouldn't let it slide anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could say Alena or Lena. Yeah. Thank you, darling.
The wrong thing in my head. I apologize.
All right, don't be silly. I'm glad I get
so much more divine.
It means I get to tell the whole world. So I'm really grateful that you said that the way you did. Thank you.
I have done it so many times, and I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So, like I try to not butcher anyone's names because I know what that is like. So thank you. And yeah.
Now, it's an interesting way to lead into our conversation. First of all, tell me how I say your name, because I want to make sure I get that right too.
Perfectly.
It's like halfway between an S and a sh, isn't it? It's kind of a Kasia.
Yeah, it's like a softer one, Kasia. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love your name. It's beautiful.
I have had everything. I had Kasia, and then finally I just go, you know what, just call me Bob. That will
do. I totally relate. As a child, I used to wish I was called Melissa. That was the name that I thought would be the easiest for the world that I lived in to say.
Yes. No, this is beautiful. And I love that actually you have led us into today's topic with boundaries, right?
Right. So we want to talk today. That's so funny. We want to talk today about boundaries, but loving boundaries. So how do we set boundaries in a way that is still loving, that is still coming from a place of heart? Because boundaries can be strong and fierce and true without being aggressive, violent, or nasty. There's a way to do that, but it's an interesting line. So this is the line I want to explore with you today, Kasia. And tell me why this was an interesting topic for you today.
So I think that if we are working in a spiritual arena, so my friends, my audience are mostly people who are open channels. So they are either working with their guides, tapping into the Akashic records, working with their intuition even, makes you an open channel. And when you are this open channel, you really need to have strong boundaries, because spirit, the good spirits, your guides, loved ones, they don't see time the way we see it down here. So they may wake you up at night. You may have, if you're a medium, you might have someone's loved ones coming through when you're not even working. And so to have strong boundaries is really, really important, especially because there is such a law as the law of personal responsibility. And that law states that your free will is powerful. So all beings must respect your free will. Now, with the good spirits of love and light, that is easy. But with beings that are lower entities, they can kind of cross those boundaries. But here's the thing: if you have strong boundaries, you can tell them to get lost and they have to respect this. So you won't get like possessed and they stay with you. They will respect your free will. But here's what I found. So this is something that I teach as well. The boundaries are very important. If you have poor boundaries with spirit, you're bound to have poor boundaries in life somewhere, and vice versa. So we always look at both sides. So I think that is what I love exploring, or what I love to talk about when it comes to the boundaries. I think that's where I come from, that exploring it, right? Everything has its ripple effect that pours into other areas of your life.
100%. Can you give me an example in your own practice, in your own life, where you have not kept boundaries and what has occurred? What's the opportunity cost? What's the limitation if we do not actively protect our boundaries?
So I think that we all have a limited supply of energy per day, limited supply of inner peace. And we need to invest it wisely every day. You get to choose where you want to invest your energy. If you invest a lot of energy into, let's say, that needy friend that keeps coming back and kind of asking you and draining your energy, being the so-called energy vampire, and you give it to them because your boundaries are low there, you won't have enough energy for your family or for your work, for your partner, for other friends, for yourself. So from my own personal experience, probably, I think when I started in this spiritual arena and doing the spiritual work, my mentor, who's now my dear friend Tracy Lee, has always said, make sure you set boundaries with spirit, otherwise they'll be coming all the time. And I said, no, that's cool. I love when they come all the time. I want them to harass me, right? All the time. And it felt at the time like this exciting decision. Like, yes, of course, I want to feel spirit. I want to see spirit because I'm playing around with them. I'm new to this exciting, like new toy. But really, it was easier because in my life, I realized, and I didn't know this till I started working with spirit, that the times where I said, oh, I don't mind when I give you extra, I don't mind if I go out of my way, I don't mind when I self-sacrifice, the repercussions from that were that this person was taking more and more because I said I don't mind. But that felt easier to me than having this uncomfortable conversation of, actually, I'm sorry, but I have to decline, or I have to say no, or I don't have time. It just felt easier. So I wasn't completely honest with myself, but I didn't realize it till actually I was being woken up in the middle of the night by spirits, and I had messages or something popping in, and then I was wide awake, and then it became a problem because, you gotta be, to be on top of your game, you gotta be rested and you gotta go have your sleep. So as I started kind of then playing with, okay, can we put some boundaries around when we are chatting and when we're not chatting? I started realizing, it's actually when I was connecting with my team, they said, there's boundary issues in other areas of your life. And that's when I started exploring. I'm like, oh, okay. So I do need to have that uncomfortable conversation, or I cannot hold it against my friend who keeps taking, because I am over here, giving, right? So that was probably one of the biggest ones, that it is important for us to rest. It is important for us to let spirits, guides, loved ones know business hours are over, they're not going to leave you. They're not going to think anything less, especially because they don't have egos, right? So there's no one's going to say, oh, I thought you're here to work with spirit, to be of service, right? And that was my fear, but I could see the reflection in my life as well.
That's so interesting, because I think, you're touching on the way that we can sometimes respond to our lives from a place of fear as well. And it's not just in the spirit kind of intuition, the world of connecting, but also in the world of practical day-to-day life. I think some of us, and I think a lot of the people that I serve, are women who potentially have become, for whatever reason, often this comes from kind of an early life experience of needing to gain love and attention by behaving in certain ways, and it develops a kind of a people pleaser sort of aspect to us, and the people pleasers amongst us, and I count myself as one of those, are often people who feel deeply, who are aware, very deeply aware of how those around them feel. And it's partially a skill I think we develop early in life, and it's also partially a skill that we just have, that is part of who we are, the kind of people we are. And I think if we are that kind of people, and if we have also had the early life experience where we felt that we needed to prove our worthiness for love or affection or attention, and that can happen for lots of reasons. It's not like a deliberate parent ignoring you. It could just be your parents worked. It could just be there was a divorce. There could be, for whatever reason, there's lots of reasons that you may have felt that you didn't get all the love and attention you needed as a little baby, And that's so deeply encoded in who we are. And we carry that in our lives sometimes. And I know I certainly do, that I catch myself bending over backwards for people I don't even know, and then like, hang on, why am I doing this? Like, what's that about, And so I think a little bit like you, Kasia, what I really like is that as I grow older and maybe potentially slightly wiser, I start to discern and choose when to be that way and when not to be. And when it is something I genuinely do want to go out of my way to help someone I love, or when I can't that day, because I have other people that need me, or I have needs in my own self that I need to honor. And that's potentially, I think, one of my greatest challenges, is honoring the needs in myself as the most key part of servicing the needs of others, as the number one priority. And that's where the boundaries come in for me, is like, how do I know deeply that it's okay to say no, to say, nope, sorry, can't do that today. I got to do this thing for myself, and put myself at the top of that list so that I can continue to serve the highest good in my life, And I think that's probably for me, that's the rub. That's the bit where it's tricky. And if I abandon that for long enough, then when I have to say no, it's because I desperately have to, and then I'm angry. And then it's a ragey no. Then it's a, how dare you ask me for that, which is really not about the other person's asking. It's more about my inability to say no with love, So because I've maybe let it go too far, or I've got other things I'm not addressing, or there's part of me trying to be heard that I'm not listening to, or, those sorts of things. That's sort of like, for me, that's the day-to-day of it. But I think energetically and spiritually what you're talking about is so true, in that we have a finite amount, don't we? And I often forget that. I just often kind of forget my own limitations and then abandon them,
I love that. And I love actually exploring self-awareness when it comes to that, because when we are self-aware and we can check in with ourselves, when a friend asks you for another favor, does it really feel genuinely good for me to do that another favor? Or am I just doing this because it's easier than to say no? Because we've kind of been, I believe, conditioned to, there is either self-sacrifice for the common good, for the good of the family, for the good of people, or you're selfish, right? So as children, you may have had to, tread carefully, be quiet, don't make too much noise, don't upset your father, don't be too loud because your mother is busy. There could have been that. So we self-sacrifice, we push down our our needs and our feelings, and we self-sacrifice. And if you express them, you're being selfish. There's no middle ground. So it's kind of like saying no has become this this thing that we shouldn't say because it makes you selfish. And actually, even when you think about a person who is very good with their boundaries, and they know when to say no, and they say no and they say yes when it feels really good for them, often we think of that person as, oh, how dare they, how rude, I've asked them for a favor, I've asked them this, how can they say this to me, right? But it's because we somehow in ourselves somewhere perhaps have this need to say no, but we can't. And we see this person as like, oh, they managed, they mastered it, damn them. How do we get to that point? And I think checking in with yourself and really becoming so self-aware that you recognize when a yes is a genuine yes and when a yes is just saying yes for the sake of saying yes because no feels harder, then I think it's easier to put those boundaries up.
Yeah, and I feel like absolutely there's a couple of things that have to occur for that to be possible in my experience. So one of them is we need to be able to separate ourselves from our thinking, because the thoughts are often where the expectations live. Like all the expectations, the social ones, the personal ones, I need, in order to be a good whatever, wife, mother, whatever, good employee, I have to say yes. All of those expectations, they live in the mind, and there's a place for that. There's definitely a place for that. But to be able to examine it in a kind of more objective and more personal way, we have to be able to separate ourselves from our thinking and understand that our thinking is not always correct. It's not always right. And then the other part of that is the ability to check in with the body, not only the thoughts. And that is like a skill. That's a skill that we need to learn in order to utilize, right? So I believe we all have it. We all have an innate knowledge of how to check in with the body. We all know what it means to have a gut feeling, to feel something in our gut, or to feel something in our hearts. We understand that. Those are body feelings. Those are embodied feelings. But I think like anything, if we don't practice it, we sort of lose that natural ability to check in with it. So I feel like that's kind of a practice. Ironically, it's a mindfulness practice. I always think that's such a misnomer because mindfulness is not really about thinking or mind at all. It's actually about the body, But
that's self-awareness.
Yeah.
And what happens afterwards, though, when you do master that first, no, sorry, I can't, I'm busy today, I'm taking, when you're not used to it, and you say that those first few no's, what happens then is also worth noticing, because you may feel guilt, you may have your mind taking you into memory thoughts where they have helped you out, you're being a bad person, this is what it means now about you. You may feel it in your body. And because your body is dense, yes, the thoughts, the feelings, you will be able to shift them rather quickly. But in your body being so dense, you will feel it much longer. So you could have potentially, been saying no, being really good, having, sticking to your boundaries for, let's say, 6 months. You don't feel guilty. You don't have the thoughts afterwards, but in your body, each time you still feel like, oh God, right? And that is where I always like to remind everyone, your body is still reacting in the old way. It takes the body a little bit longer to shift and adjust because, it's more dense. So don't pay too much attention to it, as in like, don't think you've done the wrong thing each time, or do it 3 times, you still feel it, and then it feels like, well, maybe the no feels so hard and uncomfortable, I'll go back to saying yes, right?
Yeah.
It just understand that it takes a little bit longer for the body to switch to the new pattern.
Well, that's such a great insight. And the other thing I've noticed that can happen is sometimes say that you've been saying yes for 20, 30 years. You know, you've been saying yes to everything or everyone or most things and most people. And then you start to say no. You might sort of do a bit of a pendulum swing from yes, 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 yes to no, 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 and say no to everything for a while. And then maybe you'll work out, okay, that's the end of the yeses and that's the end of the nos. And this is the spectrum that I have to play with. From all the way from the yeses to all the way to the nos. I can be anywhere in between. I can say yes sometimes, I can say no sometimes. I can do case by case. I can feel into it. And you can start to kind of exercise that muscle of discernment, you know, of understanding when to say yes and when to say no. And also to be aware that we could get it, you know, in inverted commas, wrong. Like we could say yes when really a no is warranted, and we could say no when really a yes is warranted. And that's okay. And that's how we're going to learn. And that's how we're going to, that's who we are. Humans are imperfect and we make mistakes, and that's life, you know, and not to be too hard on ourselves when we get it wrong. And I have this friend I keep thinking of as I'm speaking about this. I really admire her for her ability. Sometimes I get caught up in the do I say yes, do I say no thing. And she'll say, you just got to do what's right for your family. You just got to do what's right for you and your family. And she reminds me, you know, of the simplicity of it. And sometimes now you know, it rings in my ears a little because she's really good at doing that. And it's something, I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't learn that skill very early in my life. So it's one I'm still honing, you know. And I can definitely err on the side of, I think, giving a bit too much. I'm more of a giver, you know, the mother, the nurturer, a very strong nurturer. And I think a lot of mothers do, and a lot of women do, you know.
Yeah, but I love that. I love
it. It's a nice one. It's just a useful thing, and somehow it comes up for me really just when I need it, you know. And it does actually zap the guilt. It just throws that guilt out the window. Because of course you're entitled to take care of your family, and that sometimes the no is the way you take care of yourself and your family, you know.
Isn't it interesting though that if that phrase would have been you just got to do what's best for you, we would still sway a little bit, like,
right.
But the moment we say what's best for your family, now it resonates deeply, and like, okay, I can get behind this. Right. I can say no because it's about my family, because my mother-in-law is wonderful like that too. And she always reminds me of that as well. Whenever I struggle to make a decision or a choice, or we come up against people offering well-meaning advice when you're like, I kind of know what I'm doing now. I've got it all together. I don't need all this advice because now you're throwing me off balance, but people still can't. And she always says, you just got to do what's best for your family.
That's right. And there's another part of it too, which I think is the pause. So like often I think we feel like we need to answer straight away. I know if I get a difficult email, sometimes I just want to type the answer. And what I've learned, thankfully, my husband is a little more well thought out than I am. So he will say, just sleep on it. So I still write the email. I still write the emotional response that I want to write, but I don't send it. And my mother taught me in business. She runs a business where she's the sole proprietor, and she has a team, but they don't work directly with her. She's the leader of that business, but she works on her own. She doesn't have a leadership team. And so she now has learned, I hope I'm not giving anything away here, but she has now learned to say, just leave that with me. I'll talk to my team, or I'll talk to my partner, and, you know, there isn't a team or a partner. It's probably us, her family sometimes, or, you know, other colleagues, her support team. Yeah. But she's learned to say that, to buy herself time rather than just coming out with an answer because you feel like you need to answer. And Tim Ferriss talks about that too. He talks about the difference between the urgent and the important. And he says that if something is urgent, it probably isn't urgent. It's probably somebody else's urgent. It's probably not even important for you. And that we can sometimes get caught up in somebody else's urgent and somebody else's important. But if we can actually differentiate, okay, that is important, that is not, then we save a lot of time and we save a lot of energy.
Which brings us back to what is important for your family, right? Because you put that against everything. Do I respond to this email, or do I just have the evening off and going and watch a movie now with my family as opposed to responding, getting back, right?
Yeah,
It's
but
even simple
sometimes
like
we don't
that.
have that. Like, I mean, my mother is not in a relationship, and I, for 7 years, also was a single parent. And you do have to find a team of some
Mm,
nature because otherwise you don't have that sort of sounding board. And I do remember times where I felt I had to make a decision quickly and I didn't have time to talk to my friends or my other family members, my extended family members. And it was really challenging because I couldn't ask my 3-year-old, what do you think? And
yeah,
I remember that being, it's hard to do on your own, those kinds of boundaries set. Like I made some silly decisions at times because I didn't have anyone witnessing my choices, really, no adults. And it was interesting. I had to really learn to keep strong boundaries and to sense into and feel into what was right for me and my son because I didn't have anyone to run it past, and that is a different, it's like a different skill.
that is incredible. But look how it served you perhaps now, the person that you have become as a
Absolutely.
result, right? Pardon
Absolutely. I
me.
think it gave me a way to understand or to allow fierceness and
Mm,
and power. That actually there are times when summoning power and being powerful and fierce is entirely warranted. And unapologetically, you must at times be that way, be the warrior and protect
love it.
what needs protecting.
Yeah,
And actually, that's a loving act in itself, not just for yourself and for your child, but for the other person as well. To say, no, you cannot behave that way, actually is
yeah,
cause for them to examine their behavior. And ultimately, that is, I'm doing them a favor also by drawing that boundary very fiercely, I believe.
absolutely, absolutely. And I love how actually your mum listens to check in with her team and stuff because I say that not having a physical team, but my
Right.
team is in my astral team, and so um, your mom is checking in with her team, and her
Yes.
team could be right.
Yes.
Family could be the astral team, could be just tuning into herself and seeing what feels good, right? The
I
intuition.
think, and we do that. We think, like, there are times when I think, what would my grandmother have done? There are certain,
Mm.
and she's no longer with us, but I mean, she's with me in another way, right? We carry them and we carry their knowing, I think, in a way. So, like, my grandmother had this particular skill of being able to make anybody feel like they could tell her anything.
Mm.
And it was beautiful. She also had a very great skill of being able to get people to do things, like motivate them in certain directions, but
Wow.
without force, just with gentle suggestion. She had this very special skill and she didn't misuse it, but it was really interesting. So there are times when I think, what would my grandmother have done? She never really lost her cool, but she was very good at making it known what she wanted you to do, you know? She was really good at loving boundaries, actually.
What an incredible woman to have
Yeah,
had in your life, right? And role model.
amazing. Yeah, amazing. Do you have someone like that? Do you have someone in your astral team that is good with boundaries? I mean, when we say
I
astral
have,
team, that could mean a lot of things. So,
yeah, I actually have. So it's interesting because a lot of my relatives, my family members, my parents, are now on the other side. And I have my stepmom here. She reminds me, actually, when you were speaking about your grandmother, I could see my stepmom being very similar to that. She has been in my life like longer than my mom, but
mm,
she has this amazing way of kind of just like she will never say I don't believe in you, I disagree, or you're wrong, but she will kind of like give you these little very subtle hints that perhaps you're on the wrong way, perhaps you want to go this way, perhaps go that way, or look at things from a different perspective. Very good at motivating. I can see even like with my son, we're part of this market that's coming up. And both my kids decide they want to make stuff for the market. So my daughter is already very organized. She sells bracelets, so she's now like expanding her repertoire. My son liked the idea, he's 10. But then we kind of go like, okay, well, you got to think about like, because he wanted to make some chocolate. You got to think about the ingredients, how much they're going to cost you, how many do you need to make, how much you're going to price them to kind of cover your costs, have some profit. So we're breaking it down for him. And I think his head was exploding, like, I didn't realize what I'm getting myself
I just want to make some chocolates.
I know. So he wasn't interested. But then she is I kind of gave up, and I'm like, you know what? I think you need to see this first, like what your sister will gain out of this. And then next time, whereas my stepmom is very like, you know what? We're here at the shop. Do you just want to look at some stuff that you would put into and we'll just write down the ingredients. You don't have to do anything, but in case if you change your mind, you've got it there, right? So very subtle ways. So I love it.
Yeah, it's like somehow sort of planting a strategic seed of doubt in the right part of the garden. It's like, I know, very clever. It's a real skill, I think, actually.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, you have to, for me, this is personal, but I think in order for me to respond appropriately to any kind of request for my energy, I have to be pretty centered and I have to be pretty grounded. And sometimes requests for your energy come when you're not centered and not grounded and can take you by surprise. Like you get up in the morning, you have an idea that you're going to sit down and have breakfast and listen to some calming music or do a meditation. And then your 3-year-old wakes up and demands that you wipe his bottom, make him breakfast, get him dressed, fix the socks that aren't on the right way, make the shoes tighter, and completely takes over, right? Like children do, and as they should. So what do you do then? Like when it's literally a child needs you to do something for you, but you've run out of energy. Maybe you had a bad night's sleep. Maybe you haven't had breakfast yet and it's 10 in the morning and all you've done is serve your children for 3 hours. That's when the real test of boundaries is, you know what I mean? Like that's the moment. That's a loving boundary. Like that's what? You can sit there and you can cry for a couple of minutes while I eat my breakfast and you're safe and I hear you and I see you crying, but I need to do this now, Yeah,
I totally understand. Yes, so can relate. My daughter loves to have milk and honey in the morning, or soy milk and honey every morning. And I'm like, and sometimes I would come from my morning walk and I'm sweaty and I'm like, you know what? Let me just have a quick shower and then I'm all yours, because you don't want sweaty hands handling your milk, right? Just let me put myself together. So we do that, but sometimes there are these mornings where you're thrown straight into the day, like you said, helping, doing, serving your children. What I like to do then is make sure that I find a pocket of time where I can retract, meditate. For me, meditation is really helpful, just sitting in silence. I couldn't actually meditate in the morning unless I started getting up at like 4 a.m. And then I know, okay, I've got an hour and a half.
It's amazing.
My kids, my youngest one used to get up at like 5:30. She's better now, but I wanted to make sure that I get this uninterrupted, intentional way of waking up, because for me, it's really hard actually to like wake up because one of my children has woken me up because they want breakfast, they want this, and you get thrown into life straight away. So that was really hard for me. So I decided, okay, I'll be getting up at 4 o'clock. And this doesn't happen in the winter. It doesn't happen every day because it's so dark, but I do my best. And I know that on those days when I actually manage to get up at 4 o'clock, manage to meditate, do what I need to do to kind of I don't touch my phone till I have meditated and I'm in a good space. Then I am ready to tackle the day. And even just today, it's so funny because my alarm went off and I could see a couple of notifications and I kind of clicked on it accidentally and it appeared. So it was a message from a friend, but she made it urgent. So I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? So I went with this. So then she sent me a link. So then something's happened at the Oscars, and I'm not even watching the Oscars, but I'm kind of like following this thread.
And you get caught up.
so caught up. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, I haven't even meditated. So I'm already like, my morning feels very frazzled because of that.
Yes.
And, but I love those mornings as well because they remind me how important an intentional start to the day is, right? Like
Right.
how
And
much
there's
I'm
that,
going to,
the reality is that despite our best intentions, we cannot always control what happens in our lives. Like we can make as many conscious choices as we like. Some things are just not our choice. And there's a huge level of acceptance that needs to occur for us to live with boundaries that sometimes we can't. Sometimes there is just no way to set up a boundary. Sometimes it actually is just about acceptance. And to know the difference, I think, is the biggest key. It does seem to me like
that's what
we
we,
keep coming back to that, don't we? That some mornings you got to accept that you can't get to your meditation at 4 a.m. Other mornings you have to fight for it,
yeah, yes. And
right?
at the bottom of it all is intention.
Mm,
Because if we go back to how we started this conversation with
mm,
like, how do you set these boundaries? How do you know? I think intention is behind it all. Is your intention to help someone, or is your intention in this moment to help yourself?
mm,
You know, if your intention is to help someone, then, you know, I would imagine you don't care that you are helping them for the 10th time in a row, because my intention is to help you. My intention is to
mm.
help my child right in that moment. I want to help them. But sometimes our intention is to have a shower because we just came back and we're sweaty. And this is more important because then I know I can give you so much more, right? So much
Yeah.
comes back to the intention.
And
But
the love beneath the intention, right? So
yes,
why do you have the intention to look after yourself? It's self-love. Why do you have
yeah,
the intention to look after your child? It's love for your child.
it's that oxygen mask in the plane, right? Like when
Mm.
those masks come out, they
Yeah, the
tell us to
classic.
put the mask on ourselves first, right? And
Yeah.
then that's not selfish. That's actually you can do more good if you put your mask
It's
on,
the
because
only
then you can
way.
help others,
It's the
right?
only way. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And the
exactly
same
right.
thing happens here. But it's funny, I have actually just remembered how setting up boundaries can kind of go wrong. If I can share that, Elena.
Please.
Um, so I get a lot of messages in my private inboxes from people, all sorts of people, sometimes just sharing things. Sometimes they've taken something that I've said and this is how it happened for them. Sometimes it's to pick my brain, all sorts of messages. And I can't physically get to all of them because I tried once and it took me 2 hours. So I have set up an automatic responder in it. And I thought this is actually going to buy me some time so I can think about it and I can come back to you in a nice, time that is, where I can sit and I can respond to you, not on the run quickly. Because as you know, social media lets people know when you've seen the message. And then I always think, now they've seen it, they expect me to respond. I should respond, right? That's just my thinking. So I've set this up. And then now I'm missing half of the messages because they don't come up as new messages anymore because my autoresponder has responded to them.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually miss messages, especially from people across the globe when they message me at night. My autoresponder messaged them, first. And then, just get up. I didn't have a notification, so I don't know. So it could be sometimes days. So that is something that where the boundaries didn't go according to the plan, and I need to I need to look into this, but I don't know how to turn it off now. So I have to look into how to turn it off and figure out a different system. But I just wish that social media wouldn't show people that you've
Oh,
seen
I
the message
know.
because it's so messing with everyone.
Oh, look,
People
we're
have
constantly
thrown out the
negotiating.
fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's reached a ridiculous point in terms of the amount of information we're expected to take in a day. It's just not
Yeah,
possible, you know.
and show up and
Yeah, and I'm actually starting to lean towards the learning not to respond to everything, learning not to, a little bit like you, leaning in that direction. Part of me is like, I have to work really hard to get my message out there to as many people as possible because I know it's an important message that I'm
yeah,
spruiking here, but also, more, not so much important, but powerful, helpful. transformative.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying I'm more important than anyone else or my message is more important. I'm just saying I have some things that I think people need. That's what I feel like.
But you're also one person, right? And you have
I'm
only
one
so much
person.
time.
Right.
So this
So
is the
it's
thing.
interesting. Yeah. And at this point, the stage that I'm at in terms of all of the various things that I do, there's definitely a time coming. And I know, and you and I did a session actually, and in our session, you said to me, you're going to have to watch your boundaries. And I've already had to put a few more up because the way that I work is that it's easy for me to be friends with everybody and for everybody to be friends with me. But the reality is you can only have so many actual real life friends. I remember my father actually has this great story of having lunch with a famous author. And when he said at the end of this lovely lunch, they were in New York, and he's a really famous author, and my dad is also an author, and my dad said, we should keep in touch. And he said to my dad, you know, I couldn't possibly have any more friends. So we can't keep in touch. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Like, that's really cool. There was no pretending. There was no, yeah, that'd be great. And then walk away and never speak to you again. It was like, I can't be your friend. I have enough and I can't have any more. Yeah. And it is that thing of like, there's only so many people we can service. There's only so many people we can service in that intimate level. And it's finite. And I think often we forget, yes, we have infinite energy for certain things, for spreading certain messages to the world that is our message, and for doing the work that we come to do. Yes, that energy is replenished, but you only have so much in a day, and you only have so much in a week. And being careful with it, like you say, is such a powerful message to the world, to people, that what we do is valuable and that we will honor it. You know, we will honor it by putting a cap on it, that not spread it too thin like a river flooding, forgive the analogy at the moment. But you know, it changes the flow.
So right. And when you think about it, if you, and I literally timed, like, I mean, not intentionally timed myself, but I realized how long I've been just responding to messages. And sometimes you respond to someone, a response, so then you respond again because you don't want to leave them hanging. It was 2 hours, and I thought to myself, so I have now spent 2 hours responding to messages, and they just kept coming. And I haven't actually done what was on my to-do list, like showing up somewhere, sharing, like you said, my message in a very intentional way. Because the messages went particularly, like, it was just everything. And, you know, it was friends, but it was other people. And as much as I love it, I think we need to be comfortable with choosing where our energy goes. Be okay with, I've got now time in the evening to sit down and I can go through messages, and be okay with it that someone had to wait, because you spent all day sharing your message, helping people who need it, who wanted, who are in your spaces. So I think that is okay, but it's really for, the trick is for us to really be okay with it, not let it mean anything. It doesn't mean that I am more important and I don't have time for you, but you know, there's just one of us, and there's so many people that message you, and I know that you are a relator and you relate to people, right? Like you know what they're going through, so you want to help them, and you know, you know what that feels like. So I don't want you to feel how I felt, right? But there's only one of you, and there is not, you know, and you don't, the other option is, I guess, having an assistant messaging people, but how does that feel, right?
Well, and ultimately we can only be responsible for ourselves. We're not responsible if somebody else needs something from us that we don't have to give. That is not on you. If you are being asked to do something, and I mean, I feel this really keenly. I get asked to do a lot of things, and I don't like to say no, especially if it's something I want to do. But this year I'm training for a black belt. I'm working, I'm running a business and a podcast, and I have this, you know, passion for communication and connecting, and I'm learning that actually those boundaries, those saying no's, I need to celebrate those. Like, I'm 50. So I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, yeah, my time is finite. to some degree. And those choices become all the more important, because I go, I'm possibly past halfway. So there's this real reckoning. It's like, okay, I got to stop messing around. I got to stop playing other people's games and play mine and know really what mine is very clearly. And that's a powerful thing to do, to be clear, and to go, okay, yep, that's mine. That's not mine. That I can definitely do that as part of my mission. That is not part of my mission. And this comes back to knowing your mission, right? Which I know you help
Absolutely.
people with. Like, this is something that you are very good at. And I think that's a huge benefit of the work that you do, is that you're giving people a kind of freedom in being able to say no to things that are not in their job description, their life description, And that's, I think, something beautiful about the work that you do, just to call that out and say how amazing. That's an
Oh,
unexpected gift from the work that you've done with me.
thank you, Elena.
It's true.
Oh, I have a question though for you.
Oh, go on. Flip it
Because you
around.
work from home,
Yeah.
I work from home.
Yes.
Have you ever experienced, whether it's friends or school moms, where they think you're working from home, so you probably have all this free time,
Yeah.
you should be free to go for coffees?
Yep.
How do you handle this?
I've
Because
been
that's boundaries.
saying, I had one this week. I've had this come up a lot lately because I'm starting a business, right? So I've had to be really strict with myself. Those hours between the 9 a.m. and the 3 p.m., and it's not really, it's 9:30 to 2:30, the school hours.
Mm.
I traditionally would have done coffees and lunches and, like, I'll just go and see my friend. And I've been saying absolutely not, because I need that time for my business. And so what's been interesting is some people get it and some people don't, you know. And I find people still ask me, lots of people, friends, other mothers, they also ask you to do jobs, volunteer jobs, right? So the school or
Mm.
the
Yes,
PNC or well, you work from home, don't you? Yeah, that doesn't mean my
yeah.
time is infinite. So, or like after school, sometimes I do a couple more hours work. I will sometimes set my kids up with afternoon tea, then say, go watch TV for an hour. I have to do some work. And I let them have some downtime
Mm.
and I work. And some people might think that's terrible. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's just part of our lives. And I know they
Mm.
get what they need from me at the other times. But it's interesting because that time is actually work time for me. And then maybe someone
Yeah.
pops over, and because I don't have a job, they might expect that I can just sit around and have a chat. And
The
some,
unexpected pop in.
yeah, which I love normally, but at that moment, I sometimes I actually, to make it simpler, so I don't have to go into a whole thing, I might say, I've got to do. There's something on my calendar. I don't want to lie because I don't want to say I've got a
Mm.
phone, I've got a call scheduled, because I probably don't. But I might say, oh, there's something I need to attend to, or I've got some work to do, or like I make it very clear that it's work related. And it's actually about me. It's not about them at all. It's about me honoring that work is important and that work deserves those
Bingo.
boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And that's the leap I've only made recently. And I've been working from home for 9 years. And I've only just recently actually gained that skill of, and I don't say sorry anymore either. I say, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I can't have a coffee in the daytime until May, like next school holidays, or I've had people say, can I take you out for lunch for your birthday? And I'm going to say, this is going to sound crazy, but I can't book that in for 3 months. And that's because I need to have space in my weekend to recover
Mm.
from all the work I'm doing. And I can't have, thing after thing after thing. So one of the tricks I've done lately is I've actually put spaces into my calendar, and they're just as immovable as if I was meeting somebody for lunch.
Ooh, I love that.
So I have a space, and I talk about this quite a bit. I've said it before on the podcast. It's my newest and favorite trick, is that I actually put buffer. It actually just says buffer, but it cannot
Mm.
be. It's like an appointment with a specialist. It cannot be changed, And that's been
So how long
amazing.
would your buffer be? Is it an
Well,
hour? Is it
I started
different times?
Yeah, it depends. I move them around a bit. It started off as I started doing one from 2 p.m. So I just had half an hour before school pickup to have a bit of a break. Because what I found is that I was going from 7 in the morning till 6 in the evening without actually having a break. So I scheduled one in just before I go get the kids. So it's alone time and it's a half hour break. And I mean, sometimes I just watch Netflix. Like, it doesn't matter. It's
So good.
just to have a break, because otherwise I don't have a break and then I get really jangly.
Yeah, I'm taking a page out of your book because that is me. I was horrified when we
trick.
were counting up hours with our tax agent last financial, and she says that works out to be 90 hours. I'm like, what? That's
It's
impossible per week. I'm like, that's
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
But
So
like, she had me count everything, right? Like the little
yes,
moments where. So I love this. I need to take a page out of your book
it's a
because
really
I
good
would just
idea.
keep going.
And also putting in travel time. So sometimes I would have scheduled things that were some off-site, but I hadn't scheduled the travel time. So actually the real time things take, not the imagined time things take. And the other thing I've started to do is schedule Sundays every 4 weeks, a whole weekend actually, every 4 weeks. So every fourth weekend, we have no engagements with anybody else. So we just have free family time.
Yeah.
Where we're not rushing around. And so I'm starting to call this, I'm calling it time freedom instead of time management. This is what my whole idea is. How do you create time freedom instead of time management? Because time management is like every moment accounted for in my mind.
Yes, mine too. It doesn't bring up good feelings.
I don't like that feeling.
Mm-mm.
So now I talk about time freedom, which means working with time instead of against it, and sort of using this idea that, yeah, we have as much time as we want. Like, it just depends what we do with it. And I think sometimes it's good to do nothing with it.
Yes. And you got to
make sure you do nothing.
Yeah. But you got to put it in the calendar. I feel like someone once said, if it's not on the list, it's not going to get done. Like, if it's not written down, it's not going to happen.
So guess what it is? It's a loving boundary. We're protecting our time.
Yeah. I love that. Oh God, I'm taking notes. I'm taking mental notes because this is so juicy for me. Because we do randomly these weekends where we're going back to the 90s. There's no devices.
Great.
It's just like the
screen
stuff that
holidays.
was when I was a kid, right?
Great.
And so we have weekends like that. And for me, it's more for me, my kids, because for me it's really good. Because I know I can't be on my device, not even responding to someone, because that's bad role modeling for my kids who I've just told we're having this weekend.
It's great to do that. We've done that too. Yeah.
But we don't write it down. And so then it could be like weeks and weeks and weeks where we haven't done it because, but writing it down. And I love your idea of every fourth weekend. Because what I do with my staff now, I work 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Now the 3 weeks on is sessions. I show up in my containers, I do this stuff. And then that last week of the month, the fourth week, is I call it like for integration.
That's what I do too. Yeah, integration week. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so you can just catch up and stuff. I still work. It's just I work behind the scenes. So I might be working, writing stuff, like stuff like that. I just don't connect with clients. I don't have any sessions there.
It's great.
It's blocked out. So, but even then, I listening to what you were saying, I'm like, there's still loopholes there. I need to perfect it a little bit more,
tighten them up,
raise those boundaries. Yeah, so I love that we're having this conversation.
Oh, we're such a good team, Kasia. We're such a good team. I'm conscious of time, and I've absolutely loved talking to you. I feel like we just need to do one of these every 6 months, because I always get so much out of talking with you and sharing in your wisdom and your beautiful insights and just the way you see things. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Kasia.
Oh gosh, I feel the same. I actually got so much out of this. I literally, I don't have a pen, but I have written mental notes on like that the buffer and the 1 week in a month where you just don't see anyone, don't do anything. It's completely amazing. I love it. I love it.
Slowing down, man. We got to slow down. That's what I think. Well,
thank you for having me.
Darling. It's been so great to see you, and we'll leave it there. Bye, everyone.
Bye.